What is happening, Tokusatsu fandom? This is your captain speaking, and today we are talking episode 1 of Kamen Rider Zi-O, our season premiere. Now, first things first, I was going to do this video, I was going to do this on video, on camera, but I just decided I'm in no condition to do it right now, so I just thought audio was the best way to go. Now, whether or not I continue to do this depends on whether or not this is a good format for me to do these episode reviews on. But for now, let's get into it. Okay, for starters, I've heard a lot of people say that this draws a lot of similarities to the first episode of Decade, and in some ways, I kind of agree. Especially with the beginning, we see who's believed to be our main character, this figure named Zi-O in the year 2068. He's standing in the middle of these rebel forces that are coming in to attack him, because he's this evil tyrant king that's basically just destroyed the world in the future and just made it like a post-apocalyptic environment. Now, as all this is going down, this is all being shown to our main character in the current time by one of the rebel forces from 2068 on a screen. And she's showing him how this is who he becomes in the future, and he's a bit taken aback by it. Now, this is just like a preview clip for the events later in this episode, and I thought it was kind of weird how it was formatted, because this isn't how the episode starts, of course. They've got to go through his whole origin story, of course. But after it cuts to the theme song, we're properly introduced to our main character now, and his name is Sogo. He's a third-year high school student, and he's approaching college age, and he has to take his college entrance exams pretty soon. Excuse me. Now, excuse me as I go off on a little tangent, but he's a third-year high school student, correct? Now, I'm not sure if this is a cultural difference in the way Japan does primary school, but shouldn't this be something that's meant for his senior year, his fourth year of high school? It just seems kind of early to be going into all of this. But as far as the exams go for him, he just kind of pushes it to the side, saying that he's already decided that he wants to be a king when he grows up. And excuse me as I go off on another tangent, but this is one of the things that kind of made me somewhat not like Sogo here. He's very vague about his goals of being a king. What kind of king does he want to be? King of Japan or some other country? He just seems to have really no realistic goals for himself. And even the people around him, the local citizens that know him or whatnot, think this is ridiculous. And we even see when he goes back home, he lives in this clock shop with his uncle. He repairs clocks, obviously. He even asked him about how his exams went, and he gives him the same answer, he wants to be a king. Now, on the surface, he just kind of goes along with it and says, okay, but you can see the look on his face, the somewhat, I guess, disappointment that his nephew has no real goals for himself, and he's worried that he might just let his life pass him by without doing much. Now, this in no way brought the episode down for me at all, but I just thought it made our main character look kind of stupid at first. This in no way makes him likable. As a matter of fact, it just makes him seem kind of selfish, if anything. So, with introductions out the way, Sogo just wanders around aimlessly until he runs into a mysterious cloaked figure named Waz, who tells him that this will be a very special day for him, and to watch out for a giant red robot. He's obviously weirded out by this, but he just kind of ignores it until he's attacked by a giant red robot. And this is obviously the person we've come to know as Gates from all the info we've gotten beforehand about the show. And he's a Terminator-like character who's come back from the year 2068 to try and take out Sogo before he can become Zi-O in the future. But he's then saved by Tsukuyomi, also from the year 2068, who shows up in a similar giant robot and scoops Sogo up and gets him away from Gates. So as we saw earlier, she fills him in on everything that's going on, all the exposition that we needed, and as to why this Gates guy is after him. So they wind up bouncing around to different timelines. First they end up in one of the prehistoric dinosaur eras, then jump to I think it's 16th century Japan. And this is where they stop for a moment for Tsukuyomi to see whether or not she has the right guy. Because her first impression of Sogo is like he's like this weak, cowardly guy, and she doesn't see how he's destined to become this evil, strong tyrant king. I mean, she even goes as far as to push him in the middle of this fight where he ends up just getting thrown off of a bridge and into a river, which really makes her doubt whether or not this guy is actually Oma Zi-O. And you know what? She might actually have a point, because from the beginning, we've been led to believe that this guy is absolutely Oma Zi-O. Like, he'll become this guy later down the line in the future. So, if that's actually how it plays out, there's no really big mystery for us to find out there. So I feel like they're hiding something in the fact that he may or may not be this guy. For all we know, he could be possessed by someone, because we just got done the Kamen Rider build with people like Evol. He possessed like each and every one he could get his hands on to further his plan for making that black hole. So who's to say that the same doesn't go for Sogo? Like, maybe he's possessed by someone and he's mistaken to be this guy. Like, there's got to be something there that we don't know quite just yet that they're hiding. So we'll wait and see. It's only the first episode. So with that out the way, Gates finally shows back up. He catches up with them and pursues them in his time machine again. And he ends up knocking them back to the year 2017, where they meet up with Build. And this is our cameo for the episode. Like, they're being attacked by a smash monster, and Banjo and Sento show up and save them. So they shoot the breeze for a bit, and Sogo even goes as far as to explain the concept of the riot watch that he found earlier. And to go off on another tangent, I forgot to mention this earlier, but at the beginning of the episode, when he was talking to that karate instructor guy after he had flipped him over and whatnot, he randomly found his first riot watch on his bike sitting there. Like, I don't know why I didn't explain that earlier. Like, it wasn't really exaggerated all that much as a big moment. It was just kind of glossed over a little bit, and it didn't stand out too much to me. So I apologize for kind of skipping that earlier. So not long after, Tsukuyomi shows up, and she stuns all of them, knocking them out cold, saying that they shouldn't mess with the past too much. And then we cut away, and then we're introduced to who I believe is one of the time jackers. She's like that, or he's like that kid in that blue suit. I don't quite know what his name is, but I'll learn it eventually if I keep watching. But he shows up and stops this basketball player from getting hit by a car, telling him that history shows that this car was supposed to hit and kill him. And to save his life, he has to contract and use this riot watch that he's offering to him. And he accepts it and transforms into the another version of Kamen Rider Build. And he does his rampaging and pillaging as all good monsters do, but we're not quite sure how long this goes on for, because while this is going on, like, Sogo is like knocked out cold, like he's been brought back home by Tsukuyomi, and he wakes up the next morning and he gets this whole lecture from his uncle about how we shouldn't like let life pass us by, because we're only given so many chances to prove ourselves. And this obviously harkens back to his feelings from earlier, how he doesn't want this to happen to Sogo. It's a quick, nice little lesson to give to kids, so I didn't mind that so much. So then Sogo goes back outside, and this is where he runs into another Build, where he's attacked by him. And this is where he's tempted to use the riot watch, as Tsukuyomi shows up and tries to persuade him not to use it, and that's enough nonsense about being a king and whatnot. Now, at first to me, this seemed kind of random, because he comes to the resolution that he wants to become a king to make the world a better. And at first I thought he was only saying this because he had the drive to stop this monster that was hurting people, of course. But then I thought about it. Well, you know what? He's had a little bit of time to like think this over, like think this through, and let this thought sit on his mind for a while. Like, he's literally just been told that he's going to be this terrible person in the future, and he's witnessed firsthand like all the damage and destruction that he's caused by himself. Well, apparently. So wouldn't it make sense for the present version of him to just say, well, I mean, I obviously can't let this happen, so I should become a better person instead. Like, knowing this now, like, I have the power to choose my own path and fix this. So with that, Waz shows up with the GQ driver, gives it to Sogo, and he makes his first transformation into Kamen Rider Zi-O. And it is a very cool transformation sequence in my opinion. Like, I like the whole spinning clock gimmick and how he waves and points his hands like the hands of a clock, and really, it's kind of reminiscent of how Ichigo did his henshin with like pointing his hands towards the sky and turning them and whatnot. But that's beside the point. I'm getting off topic here. So transformations aside, he's able to take on another build quite easily. And one thing I found kind of weird was another build. He had these fireballs that took the shape of basketballs. Well, I guess the guy is a basketball player, so, but I'm not sure why that gimmick would be worked into the Rider gimmick. It's just it's very strange. So in a well choreographed fight scene, Zi-O takes out this guy pretty easily and reverts him back to his human form. So Gates catches up with him again, and he's surprised to see that Sogo's actually made his transformation into Zi-O, even after I think maybe he heard him talk about how he doesn't want to become this evil king in 2068. And maybe, just maybe, he considered not taking this guy out. But I guess him transforming into Zi-O in his eyes was kind of like taking one step closer to becoming him. So he felt like he had no choice but to continue in his pursuit. So Gates makes his transformation into Kamen Rider Gates, and his transformation is pretty similar to Zi-O's, except I don't think he does the whole clock hand gimmick with his henshin. But he proceeds to transform, and he takes out another ride watch, and it's Ghost, and he transforms into Armor Time Ghost. I think the forms are called Armor Times. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe that's what it's called. But he then proceeds to attack Zi-O, and that's where the episode ends. Now, all in all, this was a pretty solid first episode. Like, I will say, it was a bit rushed. Like, some people said it was a bit rushed in my comment section on Midwest Tokusatsu, and I kind of agree with that sentiment. Like, it just kept bouncing around from one scene to another so fast, but it really didn't hurt the episode that much for me. Like, I can understand that there was some possible exposition they wanted to get out the way as quickly as they could to move the plot forward. And then some other criticisms I heard is that it's too similar to the first episode of Decade. Now, I kind of agree and disagree with that. Now, the part I do agree with is the whole concept of him becoming an evil rider. Of course, like, that's a throwback to Decade, because Decade we know as the Destroyer of Worlds, or that's what he was known as at first. And Kamen Rider Zi-O isn't really too far behind from doing that exact same thing himself. Now, I kind of disagree with this because Decade in his first episode didn't have someone else trying to come and take him out, to try and stop him before he could become the so-called Destroyer of Worlds, as I just said. Sorry, I said it again. Don't mean to sound redundant. And plus, the episode itself, well, from Decade, it wasn't so fast-paced with him and Natsumi trying to bounce around from one world to the next, trying to get away from someone. And plus, of course, Decade's first episode didn't have any cameos from past riders. And, of course, the entire series of Decade didn't really have any past riders at all. It had the AR versions of them. So it didn't really have any past riders at all, if we remember. So I think this actually separates itself enough from Decade to be its own thing and doesn't copy it exactly. So I think it's safe to say that we could be rest assured that this won't happen. So yeah, those are my thoughts. It's a solid first episode, and tell me what you guys think, whether in the comment section or on my Facebook page at Midwest Tokusatsu. Some of you guys already told me your thoughts. But for anyone else just now seeing this, like, you can tell me in the comments or on the page. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.